Hi, I'm Arya Patnaik. I have 16 years experience in the field of digital, and today we'll be going through one of the most important aspects of digital marketing, which is email marketing. So you must have heard about, if you have been following the space of digital, that email marketing is being phased off with the advent of social media. Mobile email is no more as important as it used to be. So these soothsayers have been there for a long time now. For more than 4-5 years, email marketing still keeps growing every year, still keeps maintaining its importance in the overall mix of digital media. So today we'll take you through email marketing and how you can use it to get visibility among your customers, convert new customers. So we'll take you through a case study on how email marketing is being used in the real world. So we'll begin with what we are covering today. So I'll give you a strategic overview of what email marketing is about, and you'll need to know some technicalities even if you are in the marketing side of it. You'll need to know some areas of how email actually functions. When you hit the send button, what happens till it reaches your potential customer or your existing customer. How do you create a campaign, subject lines and content, why are they important, and how do you optimize them. Mobile first, we'll be talking about how mobile has changed the field of email. We'll be talking about a few tools and how you can use them, and obviously the very important part of it, metrics and measurement, without which any campaign is not complete. And then we have an interesting case study of the Leela hotels. So we'll start off with the strategic overview. So what happens in email marketing? So there are two types of emails. So they are either emails that are operational, or what you call as transactional emails. Then there are marketing emails. So operational or transactional emails are the ones that are sent out to your existing customers or people who have signed up for your database, for your newsletter. What happens in a scenario when you are communicating with your customers, your existing customers? So maybe imagine e-commerce. So today e-commerce is booming. Let's take the example of e-commerce. So somebody buys something from your website. So what happens next? Where does email come in the scenario? So there's a welcome series of emails that go out even before the purchase is complete. Even when the user just registers and he or she is choosing certain products, there's a welcome mail that already goes to the customer. So you're not waiting for the transaction to complete. You're saying, hey, welcome abroad, and you're sending a nice mail with a thank you for signing up with us, and these are the kind of offers, these are the kind of products that we have. So even before the customer has converted, you have sent out a mail to them, and then hopefully once they complete the transaction, which today unfortunately 65 to 70% of people who use your website, who put something in their shopping cart, then abandon it. So that is why that welcome email is so important, because even if they have not purchased anything, you have sent them out a mail and they know that they have signed up. They remember that they are your customer and they are likely to come back once you send them more offers, send them information about new products that have come up on your website. So you have also captured that 70% which has not yet transacted with you. For those who have transacted, you sent out the confirmation email, then you sent out the order number, the details of when they'll be receiving it. So these kind of information go out typically in different emails, and customers are not adverse to getting these kind of emails because those are transactional. They need to get those details. In fact, they're waiting to get those emails in their mailbox, because once they have completed the transaction, they want to know how soon they'll get it, and whether the transaction went through correctly. All that information in an email is like a stamp that yes, my transaction has been successfully registered with the website and I'll be receiving my product. So once that is done, the user gets the product. What do you do next? So number of days is something that has to be strategically defined. Whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's 1 month, whether it's 2 months, depending on the kind of product you are selling. For example, if it's grocery and your customer buys grocery almost every week, maybe twice a week, so then the email can go much faster than what it would have been if the customer bought a white goods appliance. So suppose the customer bought a refrigerator, a air conditioner, in that case your email has to be more spaced out. So depending on what you are selling, that is a strategic decision that has to be taken by the management, and then you have to decide when to cross sell. So maybe in this case, maybe the next month you sent out a cross sell email saying that this is what you had purchased, why don't you purchase something else along with it, this will go well with your product. So those kind of mails that will go out. And then purchase more. Don't just cross sell and say that if you have liked our product, if you have liked response that we gave you, the speed in which we could deliver, why don't you buy more with us, and we have these kind of discounts going on and all those things. So that is the next step that happens. Once you have a customer who is purchasing with you regularly, you need to reward that customer. So it's in management, if you have read in marketing, it's much more easier to get your current customer to spend more than to acquire a new customer. Acquiring new customer is always a costly affair. So you need to reward your loyal customers. Tell them that since you have been buying for so long, so you have bought so much from us, so we'll give you a discount the next time you're purchasing. Or include them in a loyalty program, say that you are now eligible for loyalty. So those kind of emails can then go in. So those help to retain the customer. And then the last step is reactivation. So suppose customers have options, they'll go to other websites, they'll shop on other sites, and then suddenly forget about your brand, your website. So it's all about top of the mind recall. So they have had a good experience with your website, but they still might go ahead and try out a different website just because they saw the advertisement on TV, on the newspaper, and they went ahead and made a purchase and they stuck to that website. So you need to reactivate that customer. So you need to have that kind of intelligence where you're saying that this customer used to purchase every month with us, and now for the last 3 months he has not visited the website, not logged in. So we need to reactivate that customer. So send them some kind of information which is offer or some loyalty point, maybe double the loyalty points if you come and shop with us now. So those kind of things to reactivate that customer. So how do you do that? How do you get those offers correct? Those are again strategic decisions in email. So on the right hand side, if you see a box which has been given, so for a certain kind of portal, this is the actual number of days that they are talking about. So confirmation is instant. So then there is shipping information which goes out in the next 24 hours, which says that you'll receive a product within 4 days, 5 days, whatever, and this is the courier, this is the tracking number and all that. And within 10 days, you get a mail asking for feedback, saying how did we do, did you receive a product as soon as we had promised, and how did you like the overall experience and all that. So feedback goes in 10 days. Then there's a welcome series of emails. By the 14th day, it gives you another email saying that about the product and all that. In the 45th day, another mail goes saying that we have new products. From the 45th day onwards, you start cross-selling and asking customer to purchase more. So how do you do that? You say time is running out, a certain sale is ending on this date, so why don't you purchase more? And in that particular category, you say you have purchased maybe a microwave, why don't you purchase some microwave dishes from us? So those are the kind of mails that goes out. So within 1 week, you can also have the reward mail. You can say that why don't you become a loyalty card member, and so based CLV is the customer lifetime value. So once you get a customer and once you manage to retain him or her over a period of time, say over 3 years, over 5 years, what is the kind of revenue that you are looking at from that customer? So what kind of discounts can you offer to that customer? So those come in that mail, and then re-engage maybe after 6 months. So we'll move on to the next slide where we are talking about the technical aspects of email. So don't worry, I won't give you a lot of jargon about what email is all about, but this is the basics that you need to know. So what happens when you send an email? Suppose you're sending an email from your office Outlook. So there are two things that can happen. So your company might have a cloud-based service, a cloud-based email service, or it could have the regular maybe a Microsoft Exchange or some kind of server out there. So it would either go directly to HTTPS or it could go through a POP3 connection. Now what's POP3? It's just like your post office. It's known as post office protocol. So it's just like your post office where they go and sort the mails depending on where it has to go and what is the address that it has to go on, the email address. So based on those kind of information, it goes to a hosted email server. So from the email server, there is SMTP authentication. It authenticates whether you are the right person, you are the actual person who has sent out the mail. You could be masquerading as someone else. So those kind of information are checked there, and then it's passed on to various servers until it reaches the user's email server. Now the user's email server then decides based on rules that are there in the organization that you're sending to, whether to actually send it to the user or bounce it or mark it as spam. So those kind of decisions are taken by the email server at the client end also, apart from all the routing that happened during the email sending process. So it decides whether the attachment size is too high for that particular organization, whether the contents of the email, it scans them and decides that it doesn't want to send it to the user because there may be a virus inside the email. So these kind of decisions are taken by these email servers. So from a marketing perspective, spam is the biggest email killer. If you send out maybe a marketing mail to maybe 2,000 people from your Outlook, what will happen? The very next day, your mails will start getting marked as spam. So if end users start marking it as spam, or if servers start flagging it as spam, so your emails, subsequent emails that you send out will end up in the spam folder and nobody will view it. Then there's the cloud perspective, which is the top portion. So what happens there? It goes to a secure cloud messaging platform through HTTPS. So again, this server authenticates whether it wants to send out that email further. So there are rules and regulations on the cloud server itself. It checks the number of emails that you have sent out also. So if you have sent out 1,000 emails in the last 1 hour, it will get suspicious. It will think you are trying to spam people. And then it might take a decision to block your email right there. And what will happen if the cloud server blocks your email? The next time you're trying to just email me, maybe a business communication, it will still stop that. It will say your email has been marked as spam and we won't allow you to send any more emails. So it might never reach the end client. This perspective, this technical perspective, why did I tell you about it? Is because many people have tried doing email in-house. They've said, we have so many email accounts. We are a corporate client and we don't need to go to any third-party provider. We have been using emails for so long. We know how to do email marketing. We just get 10,000 addresses and just mail this communication to all the users and they'll get it, and that's it. Email marketing is over. Why do I need so many tools? So this is where tools come in. Your regular email is not made for marketing purposes. It's made for just sending out daily business communications. So it's not for marketing. If you try doing it, potentially you'll get marked as spam and all your efforts will go to waste. And not just that, your regular communication will also start getting marked as spam. And then if your domain is your email ID, So if your company name is companyname.com, the website, and your email ID is me@companyname.com, so your email ID gets marked as spam and you can't communicate with the outside world until you change your email completely. So this is something that people realize much later. So they initially think that I can do it myself, but when they get stuck here, so then they realize that I have to go and tie up with somebody with third party tools and then send out those emails. So we'll be covering tools in this presentation. So I'll tell you more about how to achieve email marketing through tools. Now I'll be talking about creating a campaign. So email marketing, as I said, your normal email that you send out to your colleagues, to your customers, to whoever during normal business is very different from a marketing campaign which is run through email. So this is the typical process that happens, the 5-step process. First, you define the campaign. What are you trying to achieve? Whom are you sending that email to? And what do you want those users to do? What action do you want them to take? So that's what you define as the first step. And the second step, you test that email through various browsers, email clients. So you test how it will look at the end client. So how do you want to test it? So how do you want users to see it? So you have to test all that before sending out the mail. Remember, you are sending it out to a large number of people. You don't want to be in a situation where you realize at the end of the day that you have sent out so many mails and the link to your product is not functioning properly. So you don't want that to happen. So test it out thoroughly, send it out. You can either send it out immediately or you can schedule it. Why do you want to schedule it again? See, there are different times that have been scientifically, people have found out that if you send at a particular time, it's more likely that people will click on it and view that email. So scheduling is also important depending on whom you are sending out to. Suppose you are sending out to students, their scheduling time will be different. You are sending out to people who are working in offices, so the timing will be different. So for example, Monday morning 11 o'clock, you send it out to the working class, people who are working in offices. So that's one of the most busiest time of the week. You know, people have come back from 2 days of holiday and it's Monday, they have logged in, they're sitting on their laptop or on the mobile or wherever, and they're checking mails, and there'll be hundreds of emails which they have ignored over the past 2 days, 2.5 days. So now is the time when they are like going through all those mails, finding out what's important for them, replying to everything. There are calls coming in, and you send this promotional email at that time. What will happen? Obviously it will get ignored. You know, even if the customer is in need of such a service, such a solution, or the product that you are selling, so he or she will think, let me first finish all this work and then I'll go through it. And what happens when you do that? You never see it again, because you know, emails come on a daily basis and your inbox get flooded, and there's no chance that you'll go back and dig out that email and read it again. So scheduling is important. Then measurement. Without measurement, your campaign will get stuck. So you're sending out emails to say 100 people. How many of them do you think will actually click on it? Three people will click on it. So an completely unoptimized email sent out for the first time gets a click-through rate of 3 to 4%. So that's the kind of percentages that we are talking about. So you have to measure it so that you know how efficient it is, how to improve it. So the second time you send it out, you make changes to it based on whatever data that you have collected, and you realize that, oh, nobody is clicking on this button because they can't see the button until they scroll down. You know, so you've put that buy now button after a scroll. So now what do? your big company logo and all that, you make it much more shorter, goes to the left hand corner, and then your main information comes on the first scroll itself, or it's called the first fold, and your buy now button is now completely visible. So the click through rate improves. So then there is reporting. So there are various reports that you get from a third party email provider. So we'll go through all of them. So you have to look at all these reports and then decide how you want to improve your email campaign. Do you want to retarget? Do you want to slice and dice your database further so that you get better output? And finally, your ROI, return on investment. So you're spending so much time and money on email or any other campaign. So you have to measure ROI and find out whether you're getting that kind of benefit, what kind of returns are you getting. So are you getting 1.5x? So it's measured this way. So if you're spending 100 rupees on email, how much return are you getting? Did the customer buy something which gave you a profit of 150 rupees? So that's 1.5x ROI. So you have to keep this ROI metrics available at every time. So this is one of the key metrics that the top management looks at. So they won't look at bounce rates or how many mails have been sent out, but ROI is one of the important metrics that top management looks at. Subject lines and content. Again, I'm comparing your regular email during your work to your friends or whatever with an email campaign. So how do you decide your subject line? You just write whatever you want, right? So it's typically a summary of what you're sending. So in email marketing, that can't be the case. Your subject line has to be perfect. It has to attract the attention of the user. It has to tell the user to open the email and see it. So I'll tell you an interesting case during the Obama campaign. In 2012, when Obama was running the elections for the US presidency, they had a huge database of users, of voters in US. So they used to send out a lot of mails. So what they did was, they sliced and diced the data. They said, okay, this state is very pro-Obama, so let's send out these kind of mails to them. This state is anti-Obama, so they'll be very skeptical, so let's send out these kind of mails to them. So they send out various emails, and the subject lines for every email, they tried 13 different subject lines. That's how important subject lines are. Just for the record, I'll tell you which subject line did the best among all those emails in 2012. It was just a hi, H-I, with an exclamation mark. So it said from Obama, from Barack Obama, and the subject line was just hi. So that's the one that did the best. Is there any logic to it? No. If there would have been a logic, every email that you get, every marketing email that you get after 2012 would have been with a subject line hi. But no, that doesn't work out in all cases. Depending upon who your target market is, who your customers are, the subject line has to be different, and you have to experiment and come to a conclusion that which subject line is doing the best. Then you come to the content. The content on the web, on email, or everywhere else in the online world, this rule that I am going to tell you, you follow it everywhere. So this is something that was strangely invented offline. This is something that was invented by reporters, press reporters. So they call it the inverted pyramid. So what happens in an inverted pyramid? You give out the most important information at the top and the least important information at the bottom. What happens online is people don't have patience. They go through the first few lines of information and they decide whether to buy that product, whether to click on the link and follow the link to your website or wherever. So they just don't have the patience to read through the whole lot of information. So then why do I need to give that information? Why can't I just give 2 lines and then say buy now? See, what happens is there's one segment of users on the internet which does a lot of research. That's a very small percentage, but you can't ignore them because they are your most potential customers. So they are the ones most likely to convert. They do a lot of research, they read a lot and then decide on what to buy. So they are what you call as the informed customers. So for them you are giving all this information, but for more than 80% of your customers, they'll just read the first few lines and decide. So the first few lines has to be very, very important. So what I've done here is, so this is a tool called HubSpot. I'll tell you more about this tool when we go to the tools section of it, but this is a mail that they themselves have sent. And why is it so important? Because they have a lot of customers, more than 10,000 active large customers in their database, and those customers use HubSpot to send out emails. So HubSpot in itself has a lot of data about which email is doing good and which email is doing bad. So look at the email now. This simple text email with a single image looks pretty standard design. You won't say, wow, this design is really good. But in the online world, design doesn't matter. It's the functionality that matters. So this email gives them what I had told you earlier, ROI, return on investment. Look at the call to action. So this is known as the call to action, where they have the large link. It's called download the collection here, marked as number 1. So there are other call to actions like number 2, get free tips from our experts, or number 3, share this information on various social networks that you are on. So these are the 3 call to actions that they are targeting. So they are not just targeting about download the collection here, which is what they want users to do, but they have secondary and tertiary call to actions also. So you should never forget this. You obviously want your customers to buy something from you, but what if they don't? You can't just ignore those customers. So on the second step, you're telling them, I'll give you more information, I'll give you tips and tricks. So why don't you sign up with us, sign up for our newsletter or follow our expert. So those kind of call to actions. And the third one is, even if they don't want to buy it. Take my example. When I got this email from HubSpot, I more or less know what it contains, and this was being discussed in various forums and all. So I know a bit about what the content is about. I was not very interested in downloading this ebook or whatever. So but then I have my customers who are on HubSpot, and they would have been very interested in knowing what this book is about. So how do I tell them? Do I email all of them saying that HubSpot has come up with this new book? No, I don't have to bother doing that. I just click on Twitter and it logs me into my Twitter account, and it also gives me a sentence. It says, HubSpot has come out with this new ebook, have a look. So I don't have to even type anything. I just click on that Twitter icon and I share it to all my 3,000 followers, which has my clients, which has everybody else. So people can download this book. So what happens in this case? HubSpot gets free publicity. So it's not marketing the book in itself. The users who are receiving this email are marketing it on behalf of HubSpot. So you get this free publicity in the social media era. I have this link at the bottom of the slide. If you follow that link, it has some of the best email subject lines over a period of time, and how people have experimented and come up with various email lines and all that. But a word of caution to you, don't just blindly go and copy those subject line and make your email campaign. You have to look at the data of open rates, subject lines, how are they performing? You come to know through open rates, because on your phone, on your Outlook or webmail, you don't see the complete email body, the content of the email. You just see the subject line, okay, and maybe a few words here and there if you're using some apps. So based on the subject line, whether the user is clicking and opening the email. So that's how subject lines are important. So just use subject lines, various subject lines. You can do A/B testing. Now what's A/B testing? You have to send out 10,000 emails. So what do? You don't send a single subject line to all the 10,000 of them and then measure. What you do is you divide it into two parts, 5,000, 5,000. Each of them has a different subject line and everything else remaining constant. You send it out and then see the open rates. So suppose your first batch had an open rate of 12% and the other one had 20%. So the second one performed better. So keep it as it is. Go to subject A, the 5,000 emails which had only a 12% open rate. Change that subject and then send out the mails again. So the second set of mails that you are sending, send them out with a change subject line for batch A and then see which one does better. So that's called A/B testing, and that's how you come up with a more optimized campaign the next time. Mobiles. If you're doing email marketing, you can't ignore mobile. In fact, you can't ignore mobile in any form of digital marketing. Just a few days back this year, Google came up with a new set of guidelines for search engine optimization. And it said, if your website is not showing up well on mobile, we won't rank you higher. So that's how important mobile has become. I'll give you some interesting data of email usage on mobiles. So this is December 2013 data. So this is almost more than 1.5-year-old data, and look at the figures. Mobile in December 2013 crossed 50% mark. So now more than 50% of people read their emails on mobile. So I have webmail and desktop with me. If you add up the whole number of percentages, so half of it is mobile and the rest of it is the other devices. Look at webmail. Although it's 20%, you can see that it has increased by 2%. So that's also a strange statistics. So if mobile is increasing, you would expect the other platforms, webmail and desktop, to go down. Desktop has gone down 29%, it's down by 2%, and webmail is up by 2%. Why? Well, the use of rich interfaces like Gmail, the improved Yahoo Mail, and even on the corporate side, you now have very good rich interface webmails. They are so good that people don't miss Outlook anymore. They don't use other web clients like Thunderbird or all that anymore. So this feels like a native application. So if you have used Gmail, which I think most of you have, when you look at the interface, the kind of functionality it can achieve, you don't want to go back to any software to check your email. So webmail usage is increasing, but it's still at 20%. Mobile is at 51%. So there will be a lot of people who check mails on multiple devices. So I'll be roaming around, so I check it on my mobile. There are some mails that are important, I'll respond to them maybe with a short email, and then there are some mails which I'll just mark and keep it for later when I get back to my desktop or my webmail or wherever. What I'll do is I'll go through them, I'll scan them again, and whichever of them needs a lengthy reply, needs some thought to be given. So those are the kind of emails that I'll reply later on. So I'm using multiple devices, but look where I first saw it. I saw it on mobile. And people are more likely to open a mail on mobile than on their webmail or desktop. Why? Again, look at the pattern that I talked about. When I'm on a webmail or desktop, I've already seen those mails. What am I doing? I'm going through mails that I have marked as important and I want to respond to them. So I have some responses in my mind, I want to type them out and all that. I don't want to be disturbed at that time. But while I was on the mobile, what was I doing? Maybe I was just waiting for my flight. It got delayed by half an hour. So I went through some newspapers and then I took out my mobile, I looked at the mails and all that. So I have all the time. That's the time when you catch me, I am more likely to open that mail and look at it. Even if I don't want your product, I must still look at it and might get interested after looking at what you have communicated to me. So whenever you're doing email campaigns and testing it out, it's called the mobile first strategy. You don't design it for the web and then see how it looks on a mobile. You design it for the mobile and then look how it looks for a webmail or a desktop client. That's the kind of mindset shift that is required in the age of mobile. So on mobiles, it's very easy to go through an email. You get a notification. You get a notification on your desktop also and in certain webmails also. But on mobiles, when you get a notification, it's similar to getting notified on your SMS or internet chat facility that you're using, maybe WhatsApp or any other application that you're using. So you treat it almost the same way. Once you get the notification, you click on it and go and view it. So it's very different when you get that notification on your desktop. If you're doing something else, you're creating a presentation, you are working on an Excel sheet, you might want to leave it for later on. You don't do that on your mobile. So on your mobile, your email has much more chances of getting opened. So how do you optimize for mobile? First, make it very light. Don't use a lot of images. Keep the mobile's screen in mind. The screen size, they are increasing, yes, but then they are not as large as your desktop or your webmail. So in website designing, there's something called as responsive. So what's responsive design? There's some technology, it's called CSS. So in CSS, what you can do is you can find out what screen the user is looking at. So based on the screen, you give them a certain kind of page which looks completely different on the mobile, on the screen of a desktop. So you can do it to a certain extent in email also, but don't overdo it here. In email, a lot of scripts don't work. So you might want to create a completely separate mail for your mobile users. So that's when I was saying your strategy has to be mobile first. So you can't design for the web like people do for websites even today. They create it for desktops, for laptops, and then scale it down for the mobile. You can't do that for email because 50% of people are opening the mail on your mobile phone and they are more likely to convert. So I'm coming to tools now. As I said earlier, you can't just send out a complete email campaign from your webmail or your desktop client. That just won't work. You have to use a tool. So depending on what kind of organization you are, or if you are an agency, what kind of client that you're working with, so your choice of a tool will differ. So these are some of the most used tools on the internet today. This is ranked by the ratings that users have given to various tools. And if you just go by ratings, you look at HubSpot, it's way ahead of the competition. But that doesn't automatically mean that for your next campaign, you'll be using HubSpot. No. I'll tell you why. See, HubSpot is more of an integrated marketing tool. It has integration for social media, for search engine optimization, and it also has email. So it depends on what your campaign is about. Is it an integrated campaign? Yes, then you're using HubSpot. If it's not, then there are other tools which might perform better. For example, if you look at some other scoring parameters like market presence, the third column in ranking, there you see HubSpot has got 76 marks, while Salesforce, the next one, has got 81 marks. Why is that? So as I was telling you, not all campaigns are integrated campaigns. They are specialized campaigns, specialized email campaigns, specialized search engine optimization campaigns. So in those kind of campaigns, there's a lot of functionality in HubSpot that you might not be using. Plus, the functionalities for that particular area that you're using, for example, in this case, email, might be limited. So you might want to look at other options. So for our clients and for us, we have used a lot of these softwares. Salesforce is a large organization, and it has various tools and features for email that are specific to Salesforce that are not there in any other tools, which is why if you look at market presence, it has such a good market presence. MailChimp, the fourth one that is there, is for smaller organizations, mid-sized organizations. So what does MailChimp do? So it has this very interesting feature where you can just sign up and send almost 10,000 emails in a month free of cost. That's not just a only draw. It has a editor to create emails, and it has drag and drop capability. So for creating an email, you would ideally require HTML knowledge and a little bit of CSS, a little bit of scripting knowledge and all that. So if you're using MailChimp, you don't have to know anything. You can be the marketing person without any technical knowledge and just go to MailChimp. So there are a lot of templates out there. You choose something that looks closest to what you're trying to communicate to your customers. Take that template and then you can play around with it. You can drag and drop, you can change colors, you can change content out there just like you would do in Microsoft Word. So it's very easy to create. So MailChimp is very popular among small to medium-sized organizations. So why would large organizations not use it? Okay, see, there's something called this called brand guidelines. So somebody as large organization as suppose HSBC. So HSBC would have a 20-page brand guideline only for email. If it's a email on the mobile, then our logo should always be on the left-hand top corner, and our call to action has to be on the right center. So these kind of information is provided in that brand manual, and everybody who creates an email that has to be sent out on behalf of HSBC, the bank, has to follow those guidelines. It has to be inside a red box with a notch at the bottom. So all that is mentioned out there. So what would happen if HSBC were to use MailChimp? They would have to do a lot of customizations. There's no template called HSBC email inside MailChimp. So they would have to take a template and then keep on customizing it till they get something that actually adheres to their brand guidelines. So they can't use MailChimp. So what do? Such large organizations have a team. So there's a team that's designing the email, creating the HTML part of it, but when it comes to sending out, they'll still need a tool. So for those kind of organizations, there's a tool by Amazon, the cloud-based functionality that I was talking about when I showed you the technical aspects of email. So Amazon was primarily into e-commerce, so it's one of the oldest e-commerce companies and a profitable one at that. And its cloud service, which is now open to the general public for quite some time now, is considered one of the best in the world. So a lot of these large organizations use Amazon's cloud server to send out bulk mails. And Amazon is the one responsible to look at whether those emails are going into your spam, whether they are bouncing from users' mailboxes and all that. So they have engineers who guarantee you that your mail won't go into spam if you follow their guidelines, and they monitor emails 24/7, and if their IP addresses, if their domain names gets mentioned in the spam list, so they talk to those spam databases and get it removed so that your mails don't end up in spam. everybody uses some other kind of tool based on what their requirement is. So, if you have millions of emails that are being sent out every month, you would have an array of tools that you will be using. So, you will be having tools that you will use to check the speed of how soon the emails are getting delivered. You will have tools that will check how the email is rendering on various browsers. For testing alone, you will have tools that will automate A/B testing, or there's something called as multivariate testing. So, these kind of automation tools will be used to send out mails using different subject lines, different contents, different call to actions. And then for the actual sending, there will be maybe various cloud providers that will be there that will be using simultaneously. And then the reporting would then come from various formats, and then you will have to collate all of them and generate your own report using again maybe tools like BA tools, they are known as business intelligence tools that will be using. So, depending on what you are doing, there are various tools. Maybe you are on the agency side or you are at the client end. So, if you are working for an organization, so there will always be a set of tools that are already there. So, depending on how the campaign is performing, you can then say that, okay, this is one more tool that I think will be useful for you. So, if you are sending out millions of emails, so there will be an array of tools that will be using. So, you start off with designing tools for email, and then you go on to test out the speed of email delivery, the images that you are using, optimization of the overall email HTML page. And then there will be tools that will simulate sending it out, and then maybe there will be various cloud providers that will be using simultaneously to send out those emails. They will all give you reports from their own servers. So, you have to have some kind of a BI tool which will collate everything, a business intelligence tool that will collate everything and give you the final reports. So, based on usage, there will be a number of tools that is being used. So, if you are on the client side or the agency side, that will also decide what kind of tools you are using. So, at the client end, maybe it is a large client, it is already using enterprise applications like SAP, they are a Microsoft partner and all that. So, the kind of tools they will be using will be different. On an agency side, there will be more startup kind of tools like I told you about MailChimp. iContact is a similar tool similar to MailChimp. So, these are the kind of solutions that will be used at the agency end. So, for larger clients, what they do is they share their software access with agencies, so that agencies have to learn that software and then start using it for that particular campaign. So, these are the list of the most famous softwares out there. So, there is a link there which has further comparison in terms of features as to which features are available with which software. They are all easy to learn, and they all have at least a 15-day trial. So, you can sign up for some of them, go through them and see what all features are available with them. So, according to me, this slide is the most important slide of this entire course, metrics and measurements. So, when you are doing an email campaign or any other campaign, as I told you, measurement is very important. In the digital world, everything can be measured. Unlike in the offline world, ad agencies that have been out there since hundreds of years, their attitude to a particular campaign is very different from what happens online. So, everything here can be measured. If somebody comes to you and says that you can do branding online, but there is no measurement, you just have to create a campaign and run it and you will get some branding, don't believe in that person. In the online world, you can measure everything, you can calculate ROI on everything. So, here are the most important metrics in the pie chart that I have given on the left. So, I will start with open rate. As I was telling you when I was talking about subject lines, open rates are when you send out 100 emails, they get delivered, and then how many people out of them open that email and look at it. That is called as the open rate. that depends on the subject line, the time of the day that you send it out. So these are the two important factors for open rate. So your open rate is low, you need to look at your subject line, you need to look at the time of the day you are sending it at. And the third aspect is a larger strategic aspect. Are you sending it out to the right target market? Maybe it's not important for them, which is why they're not opening it. And the second one is click-through rate. Now the mail is open, they've opened the mail, it's in front of them. So you have given them call to actions. If you remember that HubSpot email that I showed you a few slides ago, there were 3 call to actions. So one was to download their ebook, the second was to sign up for tips and trips from the experts, and the third one was to share information on social media. So there are 3 options where the user can click. So what's the click-through rate? After 100 people opened the email, how many of them actually clicked on one of those links? So that's called the click-through rate. So what does that depend on? Now before the world of HTML, there was just text emails. There were no images, there was no formatting in emails, so it used to be plain text and the hyperlink used to be in blue color, so that's how it got differentiated, but otherwise it was all the same. Click-through rates were lower. So then HTML came in, there were formatted text, and then the image buttons that came in, and the click-through rate increased. So HTML, better visualization, click-through rate is better. So then people realized that buttons, if they are of specific colors, the click-through rate increases. So there are colors that have been identified like blue, red. So these are the kind of colors where click-through rate will be higher. Now next time you get an email, a promotional email, open it and look at the color of the call to action. So it will be either blue or red or orange. So these 3 colors, 80% of the emails that you get, the call to action will be among these 3 colors. So then I was also telling you about above the fold. So when you open an email, some part of it is visible on your screen, again on your mobile screen or your desktop, laptop, wherever. So some part of it is visible, some part of it is hidden. So if you scroll, you can see the rest of it. Now the chances of scrolling in an email is very low. So if the user is, as I told you, a research kind of person, somebody who is doing research online and trying to find out the exact product that he or she wants to buy, only then will they scroll and read the rest of the content. Otherwise people will just read the first few lines. So if you don't have a call to action upfront, above the fold, the click-through rates will be very low. So just imagine you have a mail where you have written beautifully about the product. You have said this is one of the best products available, it has got so many awards, and it has been already millions of people are using it, and this is what Arya said about that product, this is what Ramesh said about that product and all that. And after writing all this, you say buy now, but that buy now button is not visible on the first scroll, on the first fold. So your click-through rates will be low. So you have to adjust that. And then the engagement rate. Now the engagement rate is a combination of all this, the open rate, the click-through rate, and then there's something called the second time the user sees the mail. So I read the email and maybe I'm at home and I'm on my way to office. So I read the email. Maybe you have an e-commerce or e-commerce platform where you have sent out a mail saying I have a discount on this product and all that. So I look at the mail, I'm really interested in purchasing it, but I say, hey, I'm going to office, so I'll go to office and then I'll purchase this. I don't have the time right now. So I go to office and I open that email again. So there are a lot of purchases which happen after the user looks at the email twice, thrice. So only after that he or she takes a decision. So engagement rate takes that into account too. Then there is something called as the unsubscribe rate. This depends on from where you acquired that database. So the database, your own validated database, is becoming one of the most sought after digital own asset. So it's an asset that everybody is craving for. So how do you build such kind of a database? So that one is your own website, your own blog, your own app. So it's your own property on the web. So wherever you have it, always have an option for users to sign up, register for either your email or as a user for your portal or whatever. Don't lose out that option. The second is offline. A lot of users are signed up offline for various industries. For example, I was in a meeting with a cooperative bank last week. So I asked them, how many customers do you have? So they said roughly around 12 lakh customers. I said, okay, so what we'll do is we'll send them an email blast saying that your new product, your recurring deposit product has been launched. So they were looking blankly at me. I said, what happened? They said, we don't have even a single email ID. So I said, why? He said, all the signups are done using offline forms, and those forms have been in existence since donkey's years. And these forms did not have an email address field when they were first printed, and they're still using the same form, so they don't have a single email ID. So look at what they have lost. If they have to do that exercise today, 12 lakh customers, reaching out to them offline, maybe they'll have to hire a call center, speak to each of them, and with the new rules for call centers where you can't just call up anybody if they are in a do not call database, you can't reach out to them even if they are your own customers. So with these kind of rules, it's very difficult for them to get those email IDs now. So never lose an opportunity to take the user's email ID, and with it the permission to send them out certain campaign related information. So if you have that kind of email database, only then it makes sense to do the marketing. So what if you don't? What if you are a startup? What about this bank? So how will it reach out to customers then? So all is not lost. So what you can do is, as a company, you tie up with other organizations. So then you say, we'll send out this communication to your customers. So the other company Y, will not share that database with company X, because as I was telling you, this is one of the most coveted digital asset right now. So what they will do is, they say, you send us your communication and we will send it to our customers. So that's how organizations that do not have their own databases are dealing with this problem today. So the last one is delivery rate. As you can see, I have kept it as a separate pie in the pie chart. Why is that? Now everything else is more or less under your control, but delivery rate, it has a lot of parameters that decide on how many emails are getting delivered. So for example, you have your own database, but that database has been acquired over a period of time, okay, say over the last 7 years. So what has happened over the last 7 years in email? People have shifted from email IDs of their ISPs, your internet provider. So you might have Airtel or MTNL or VSNL or whatever. So 7 years back, there used to be email IDs of ISPs which people used to use. So like at vsnl.net.in and things like that. And on the webmail front, there used to be something called Hotmail, which people used to use a lot, and then there was Yahoo. So those things have changed. Now if you go to see, there's live.com and gmail.com, which is doing very well. So people are using those IDs, they have shifted. So your delivery rate will go down if your email database is stale. So if it's a fresh database, your delivery rate goes up. So if you join an organization, or if as an agency you have a client whose database is old, your delivery rate is bound to be low. So there's not much you can do there unless you take a fresh database of your existing customers or potential customers. So then delivery rate also depends on, I was telling you about parameters that various mail servers have of what all factors do they see before they decide to deliver that email to their end users, or bounce it off, or mark it as spam. So these factors, as I was telling you, whether the email looks like it has a virus in it, whether it looks like it has come from somebody else, but the email ID looks to be a fraud. So those kind of factors decide the delivery rate. This is a bit tricky, so not something that you can control like open rate. I said you can control it by trying out various subject lines and all that. So once a campaign is on, you are stuck to the delivery rate. So better be careful about the kind of data that you are dealing with. So there are tools available again in that aspect where it can actually check through all the emails and find out how many of them are already dead. No, they are not being used anymore, and you can see how many of them are bouncing because there's not enough space, or a lot of other factors. So it can actually send out bits of information to all of these email addresses and find out the delivery rate even before you have started the campaign. So if you are of the opinion that the information, the email database that is there is not good enough, so I would recommend you do a test before running the campaign, because once you have done all this hard work and created a campaign and run it and your delivery rate is very low, then you won't achieve anything out of it. I have this interesting table for unique open rates for various industries. So whether it's your own organization or clients, they all ask this specific question before an email campaign. They say, how much traffic will we get? How much ROI do you think we'll get? So if you have no idea, just refer to this table. For example, let's pick up any field out of here. Say we'll pick up healthcare. Okay, so healthcare, if it's a pharmaceutical company, suppose it's a formulation which does not need a prescription, so you're sending it out to all your customers saying this is a new product and you can buy it from us. So what are the open rates? So it says the mean is around 19%. So let's say 20%. So 20% of the database will open that mail. So the next question that you ask them is, what is your database size? So if they say we have a database of 100 customers, so you know that around 20 of them will open it, and then you can do a back calculation as to what kind of returns you will get out of that campaign. So these kind of information is very beneficial. You just don't have to be running the campaign blind. You have some kind of information to rely on. Obviously, it will not be exactly 20%. As you can see, the median, the top quartile. What is the top quartile? It's 30%. So it's a 10% difference. So what has happened there? So in healthcare again, suppose your client, this pharmaceutical company, is doing this email campaign for the very first time. So their result will be below 20%. It might be even lower than the median. So the median in this case is around 18%. So it may be even 15%. So 30% is what people have achieved once they have run the campaign for a certain period of time, optimized it a lot, and then finally reached this figure. This is what this table is. I've given a link where you'll find even more statistics as to how email campaigns are doing in various industries. So with this, we'll go through an interesting case study for Leela Hotels. So I'll give you a small brief about Leela Hotels. They are a boutique 5-star hotel range in India, present in almost 7 to 8 locations. And they have domiciled users, they are called domicile data. So their customer data, which says that 60% of their customers are from US and around 20% from Europe. So email is a very effective way to stay in touch with them. If you have been dealing with a bank, if you have an account with a bank, you might be receiving a lot of mailers which are snail mail. So we in the digital world call the normal mail that you get in your house, the courier guy or the postman gives it to you, we call it snail mail, and this is email. So you get a lot of snail mail, which known as direct mailers in the ad world. So you can't do that in this case, because more than 80% of the customers are in US and Europe, and you can't go through the whole hassle of sending out direct mails to them, and you don't know how many of them will get opened and all that. So email is a very effective way for Leela to stay in touch with their customers. So we have been dealing with Leela hotels for quite some time, and they fortunately have a database of all the registered users, unlike the bank that I was talking about. So around 1,25,000 users who frequent Leela. Plus they had a direct sales database which the offline sales personnel pick up when they go and visit various corporates, various organizations. So that gets captured into the database also. There are events and roadshows that happen. So for example, they have a large clientele from say New York. So they actually go to New York and they have a roadshow about Leela and all that, so that there's brand awareness created among the target market there, and the people who interact with them, they manage to take their contact details along with the email, and that gets entered here. There's something called as GHA. So GHA is a global hotel alliance, so it's a alliance of various hotels that are there. And what happens is when a hotel signs up for GHA, they sign an agreement. They say we'll share our customer data with you, and in lieu of that you share your customer data with us. So whoever is part of this alliance can access a database of all the 10 or 12 hotel chains that are part of it. So that's the rich database that are there. And then there are marketing tie-ups. Leela specifically has tied up with Air France, with KLM. These customers, according to Leela, is of the same target market as what they want to acquire. So the Air France target group is the same as what Leela would want. So they have realized that if they sent out communication to Air France customers, the conversion rate will be much higher. This is how you acquire the database. So there are all the aspects that are covered in this single slide: getting email IDs out of your own properties, getting email IDs out of offline sales that happens. Then there are events and roadshows where you can get databases from. Tie-ups that you need to do, as I told you, if you are a startup or if you happen to be in a situation where you are starting from scratch, you do not have any email addresses, it makes sense to tie up with other organizations. And then marketing tie-ups like Air France. So see, they are tying up with their own industry, and they are tying up with other industries also where the target group is the same. So that's how you acquire legitimate databases. So I have been talking about slicing and dicing the database a lot. Now we'll see how to actually do it. So 1,25,000 users. So how do we slice and dice for Leela? Look at the yellow top part of the cube. We have sliced them according to their roles. Who are they? So these are the kind of people who visit Leela Hotel. So he or she might be a CEO, a CXO, director of a company, somebody retired, somebody of Indian origin staying abroad, film stars. So as I was saying on the top, so these are the roles of people that come to Leela Hotel. So we divide them by roles, and then we have a certain set of database. Then what we do, if you look at the blue side of the cube, these are the areas that they come from, the countries that they come from. So they might be coming from, as I said, 60% of them from the US, or 20% of them from Europe, Australia, so all these parts of the world. Then we divide it and slice it that way so that we have a database by country. If you look at the red side of it, then we slice the database by how or why they come to Leela for. So they come to Leela for attending a conference, a marriage, or they are out there for sightseeing in India, they are tourists. So the purpose of visit is what is shown on the red side of it. So when you are running a campaign, it's very different for each of these areas. So just imagine I'm combining all of that and getting some information which is on the right hand side. If you see the cubes that are strewn around there, I am saying a CEO from UK is attending a seminar in Leela. So when you have that kind of information, when you are sending out the next email campaign, you can target it specifically to these kind of people. So they are CEOs who are coming from UK to attend a seminar. So very good in English. So if they are from any other European countries, I have to tone down my English, or I have to use their own local language, otherwise they won't understand my communication. So UK, very good in English communication, no problems out there. So I am sending out an English mailer to them. It's a CEO, so he is here on a business visit. So he has already seen Leela. So can I tell him that Leela has properties where you can visit the next time with your family and do sightseeing in India? So I'll have to look at domicile data for the tourism industry, tourism in India, and see how UK is favoring. So if UK is sending a lot of tourists to India, I would want to capitalize on that. This person has been there on an official visit. So the second time I'm asking him to come with his family and visit India for a vacation. So those kind of specific mailers can go out. So slicing and dicing, it's very interesting. I'll show you the kind of information that we could gather from there once we sent out those emails. So this metrics, this pie chart that I showed you, so these measurements are something that will happen on a continuous basis for any kind of campaign that you sent out. But you need to go beyond these data. So when you're saying open rates, you're saying I created a campaign which had 12% open rates, and then I sent it out to maybe country X where I got a 20% open rate. Why did it happen? So why did that particular country get better open rates? So you have to be in sync with the business. You have to understand the business to be able to create these insights and share it with the team. So these are some kind of information that we got, which we shared with them. I'll share some cases with you. We provided business insights on tier 2 cities. So what happens is Leela is in India more of an aspirational brand. So it's not something that everybody can afford. So room rates are quite high. So it's a 5-star property, a luxury property. So what happens is during the monsoons, the customers who come to Leela from US, UK and all, they don't prefer the monsoon season because it's raining, they can't go out, they can't enjoy it as much as they would like to. They like the sun, but they don't like the sun when it's very hot. So their preferred time of coming to India is especially between October to February. So after that, when it heats up, the leisure tourists, their number go down. The corporate tourists who come here on seminars, on exhibitions, have to be there at that particular date, so they don't have an option. So they still have to come there. But when it's the rainy season, you have less number of corporate events too. and your leisure travelers go down. So at that time, what Leela does is they bring out special offers for targeted at the Indian customer. And what they used to do before the advent of email marketing and all that is they used to advertise in newspapers, on various media in tier 1 cities in India. So why tier 1 cities? Because the spending power in tier 1 cities would be higher, and they would get their customers from there. So these aspirational customers who are waiting for a discount will finally manage to come and stay in the Leela. So that's the kind of brief we had got. But remember what we did, we sliced that data. So we had customers from India. So we actually went through that data, and there was a mismatch. The brief said tier 1 cities, but here's a database that we were seeing with a lot of data from tier 2 cities. So we said, let's test this out. So we further diced the database. So we said, now we'll have city-wise data, not just tier 1, tier 2 cities, we'll have city-wise database. So for tier 2 cities, what we did was we broke that database into specific cities. So we had Ahmedabad, we had Kochi, we had all tier 2 cities out there, and we sent out the mailer, and it performed much better than tier 1 cities. So Bombay, Calcutta, the open rates in these cities were 7 to 8%, and in tier 2 cities in places like Cochin and all that, the open rates were as high as 25%. So people were much more interested to stay in Leela in these cities. So were they actually converting? We again sent out those emails and tracked these conversions again city-wise, and we found out that tier 2 cities were giving us the highest amount of ROI. So here's an example of how information from the online world is proving to be an enlightenment in the offline world. So what happens is this information then percolates to the top management and then goes down, seeps down into the offline world, where offline advertising spends are decided, and then they decide, oh, okay, so tier 1 cities are not interested in our offer, it's tier 2 cities. So we should not advertise in this newspaper. We should advertise not in the Times of India but Dainik Bhaskar. So these are the kind of insights that they get in the offline world, thanks to all the analytics and data that you see out here. So similarly, we learnt about guests' preferences. So what we did was, when we sent out those newsletters, we also did some kind of a quiz, okay, and there were small prizes that were given away. So these were mostly questions about their preferences. So what would they prefer? For example, Leela had 120 kind of pillows. So it's a luxury hotel, so it has a menu for pillows. So we said, what kind of pillow would you like? So based on customer preferences, so we learnt about who likes which kind of pillow. So what would happen is, when that particular guest would come to Leela next, we would have the room prepared in that way. So everything, every corner of the place that he or she has given a preference for, we have recorded that in our database, and we have it in the room. So that's the kind of intelligence that email could give us. Then that's feedback. Feedback is very important for any business, the service business especially, and luxury hotels, it's all the more important. So what did we do here? See, we asked for anonymous feedback. There's always a feedback form, a register that you write in the property itself, but it's not anonymous. Even if the guest is leaving, checking out from the hotel and filling up the form at that time, there are staff who are surrounding him, and they're looking at what he or she is writing. So providing honest feedback is very difficult in that kind of a scenario. So what we did was, after the guest went back, we sent out this form, electronic form, saying that your information will not be revealed, so you can share whatever you want. And there were certain questions, and there was some open-ended questions too, which the user was asked to answer, the guest was asked to answer. So what happened is, the kind of feedback that they used to receive, Captain Nair, the owner who is no more, so he used to receive, was filtered. So what used to happen was, stage 1, the guest is leaving the property and is filling up the feedback form. So there he doesn't want to offend anybody or write against anybody, so he or she is toning down whatever he or she wanted to say. So suppose some of them, maybe 10% of the guests, give a honest feedback. Does it actually reach the management? So maybe they have filtered out before they are sent to the management, and the management again, once they share it with the owner, they say, okay, this is too much, let's remove this from the feedback, and they again filter it out and send it to the top management. So that's 2-3 level of filtrations happening, and the owner never got the real story about what users feel about his property. So here what happened is, this was real-time information. We used to send out the form, and everybody who was authorized could log in and view the information and see what kind of feedback the user is sharing. So that's the power of email. We also address specific business problems using email. For example, when 26/11 happened, the attack on Taj and Oberoi, there were a lot of cancellations that happened after that. So people were scared, foreigners were scared to come to India after that. So they didn't want to visit India, stay in a 5-star property. So 92% of reservations in December for Leela got cancelled. So December is the most peak season for a 5-star property. So it's Christmas time, New Year time. So this target market, US, UK, the rest of Europe, all of them want to celebrate Christmas, New Year. So they come to India as one of the destinations. And when they came here, when they learnt about these kind of disturbances, they would either go back immediately, or they hear it in the news and they cancel their bookings. So when these many bookings got cancelled, there was no point in continuing various digital marketing initiatives. So we would get almost zero ROI out of it. So we stopped everything. So we went back to the drawing table and we said, what can we do now? Then we looked at domicile data. Domicile data is again data about the kind of visitors coming to India. So we looked at the last 1 week, the kind of people who are still visiting India. So we did some analysis and found out that they were all business people coming here on business trips. So there were meetings that were scheduled, there were conferences that were scheduled which didn't get cancelled. So those are the kind of people who were still coming, not people with families who wanted to celebrate Christmas. So once we had this information, as you remember, we had this database. So we had sliced and diced the data, and we had specific data about business visitors coming to India for a specific purpose. So we targeted them and sent out mailers with specific offers and information about what had happened. And then the next set of emails were all about security. So what happened was, not just Leela, all other 5-star properties also implemented specific security measures. There were X-ray scanning, there were further security arrangements that were put up. So all this information were also put up into emailers and sent out to all these customers. So that resulted in at least some form of business picking up for Leela. These are some things that tools won't provide you. So tools will provide you quantitative data. So the reports that they provide won't tell you what you can do qualitatively to improve the business. So that is something you'll have to take a call on. So if tools could have done everything, you wouldn't have been attending this course, because customers would just use the tool and get the thing done. So you don't need people actually monitoring it. But this is how it actually helps your business when you have somebody who's grounded and completely aware of what is happening. This was about email. So I hope you'll go back and register for certain tools and go through them. They're all free of cost for trying out. So try them out, send out emails to your friends and see how they function. And thank you very much for attending this session. And I hope you have taken away something from this lecture.